Disclaimer. This documentary is for educational purposes only. It takes no political side and uses AI-assisted visuals. Viewer discretion is advised.
For decades, Iran and Israel have been locked in a conflict that officially wasn't a war. No massive invasions, no permanent front lines, no formal declarations. Yet this shadow conflict has influenced governments, armed groups, intelligence agencies, global oil prices, and the lives of millions across the Middle East. What began as a geopolitical rivalry evolved into one of the world's most complex proxy wars, a struggle fought through allies, militias, cyber attacks, covert operations, and intelligence networks. And recently, that shadow war has begun stepping into the open. Today, we're exploring the Iran-Israel proxy conflict, how it started, who is involved, why it matters, and how it could shape the future of the Middle East. To understand this conflict, we need to go back several decades. Before 1979, Iran and Israel actually maintained relatively friendly relations. Iran was one of the few countries in the region that maintained practical ties with Israel. Everything changed after the Iranian Revolution. The revolution replaced the monarchy with an Islamic republic that viewed Israel as a major regional adversary. From that moment onward, ideological, political, and strategic tensions began to grow. Over time, these tensions evolved into a broader regional struggle. Instead of fighting each other directly, both sides increasingly relied on indirect methods. This is what experts call a proxy conflict. Rival powers competing through allied groups, partner organizations, intelligence operations, and regional influence rather than traditional battlefield warfare. Imagine two rival powers that want to weaken each other, but wish to avoid the enormous risks of direct war. Instead of attacking each other openly, they support allies and partners across the region. This strategy can reduce political costs while still allowing both sides to project influence. For decades, Iran developed relationships with several armed groups and political movements across the Middle East. These networks became known by many analysts as part of the axis of resistance. Meanwhile, Israel focused on countering these networks through intelligence operations, military strikes, diplomatic partnerships, and technological superiority. The result was a long-running contest stretching across multiple countries rather than one battlefield. Lebanon, Syria, Gaza, Iraq, Yemen, each became part of a larger geopolitical chessboard. The first major actor is Iran. Iran seeks regional influence, strategic depth, and deterrence against perceived threats. The second actor is Israel. Israel views many Iran-backed groups as security threats and has worked for decades to limit Iran's regional military reach. But the conflict isn't only about these two states. Several other actors play important roles. First, Hezbollah. Located primarily in Lebanon, Hezbollah has been one of the most significant groups associated with Iran's regional strategy. Based primarily in Gaza, Hamas has also been part of the broader regional dynamic involving Iran and Israel. The Houthi movement. Operating from Yemen, the Houthis have increasingly become important players in regional tensions. Iraqi militias. Several armed groups in Iraq have also been connected to the broader network of regional rivalries. Together, these actors transformed a bilateral rivalry into a regional struggle spanning thousands of kilometers. Not every battle in this conflict involves missiles or soldiers. Some of the most important confrontations occurred in secret. Over the years, both sides have been accused of conducting cyber operations, intelligence missions, sabotage campaigns, and covert actions. Nuclear facilities became a major point of contention. Israeli leaders repeatedly expressed concerns regarding Iran's nuclear ambitions. Iran, meanwhile, viewed many foreign operations targeting its facilities and personnel as acts of aggression. This created a hidden battlefield where information, technology, espionage, and sabotage became just as important as conventional military power. For years, this secret war remained largely out of public view, but events in the 2020s began changing that. If there was one place where the proxy conflict became especially visible, it was Syria. As the Syrian civil war unfolded, Iran expanded support for allied forces operating within the country. Israel increasingly viewed this growing presence as a strategic threat. As a result, numerous strikes targeted facilities, supply routes, and military infrastructure connected to Iranian interests. Syria effectively became a frontline of the proxy war. The struggle was no longer purely ideological. It became about geography, logistics, influence, and military positioning. Who controls the routes? Who controls the supply chains? Who controls strategic territory? These questions drove years of confrontation. The conflict in Gaza added another layer of complexity. Events in Gaza often triggered reactions across the region. Groups operating in Lebanon, Iraq, and Yemen increasingly became involved in broader regional tensions. What once appeared to be separate conflicts began connecting together. Analysts increasingly describe the region as an interconnected security environment. A crisis in one location could rapidly trigger consequences elsewhere. This interconnectedness became one of the defining characteristics of the Iran-Israel proxy conflict. For decades, both sides generally tried to keep the conflict indirect. That changed dramatically during 2024. A series of events led to unprecedented direct exchanges between Iran and Israel. Missiles, drones, retaliatory strikes. For the first time, many observers felt the proxy conflict was evolving into something more dangerous. The traditional rules that had governed escalation seemed to be weakening. The world watched closely. Would this remain a limited confrontation, or would it trigger a wider regional war? Fortunately, large-scale escalation was avoided, but the threshold had clearly shifted. The conflict had entered a new era. Many people ask, why should someone thousands of kilometers away care about a conflict in the Middle East? The answer lies in global interconnectedness. The region sits near some of the world's most important energy routes. Escalation can affect shipping, energy markets, investment confidence, regional stability, and international diplomacy. When tensions rise, governments around the world pay attention because the consequences can extend far beyond the Middle East. Today, the Iran-Israel conflict stands at a crossroads. Several possibilities exist. One path leads toward diplomacy and de-escalation. Another leads to continued proxy warfare. A third possibility involves periodic direct confrontations alongside ongoing regional competition. No one can predict the future with certainty, but one fact is clear. The old distinction between proxy conflict and direct conflict has become increasingly blurred. The decisions made by leaders, diplomats, military commanders, and regional actors over the coming years will influence the future security landscape of the Middle East. For more than 4 decades, Iran and Israel competed through allies, intelligence networks, regional influence, and indirect confrontation. What started as a shadow war became one of the defining geopolitical struggles of the modern Middle East. Its effects have reached beyond borders, influencing diplomacy, security, economics, and international relations. Whether the future brings peace, competition, or renewed confrontation remains uncertain. But understanding this conflict is essential to understanding the modern Middle East itself. If you found this documentary informative, consider liking the video, subscribing, and sharing it with others interested in world affairs and geopolitics. Thanks for watching.